Okay, I'm back working on my 2003 Ram 1500. We're going to be replacing a lot of the suspension parts in the front end here today. Now you can, inspect your tie rods and ball joints and look for obvious signs of cracks and stuff. And you can also lift the vehicle up and move them around and tell how much wear they have. In this case, these are some of the worst I think I've ever seen. So, and you can also tell by driving the vehicle, you're getting a lot of slack and a lot of noises and movement. It just doesn't sound good. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to show you a kit that I have here. And this has everything that we're going to be needing here today. Let me move it on out here. Okay, so like I said, it's a complete kit. We have just a pair of everything here, 10 pieces all together, and show these a little bit better. We go to putting them in. This is the upper control arm. Right here we've got our ball joint, our lower. It gets pressed in on this vehicle. It's serviceable. You can, if the whole thing's messed up, you can replace these, but they're $120 a piece for those lower control arms. But they do have bushings in them as well, so you may want to weigh the cost of replacing them versus just getting you another one. So this is a stabilizer link. We have the outer tie rod and inner tie rod right here. And I'll give you we'll take them out of the plastic here. I'll show you. Okay, so this just gives you a better view. So this is the upper control arm. It's just got this little plastic protective piece here. It just comes off. This has got your bushings up here already into place, and see the lower one will have these two. We'll take a look at those. We can put those in if need be. I don't know if we're going to do them at this time. And then we have the lower ball joint. Again, they put these little caps on here. I believe it's got one too. But they come with the little grease fittings, and comes with the new C-clip, cotter pin grease fittings, and then we have our stabilizer link here. Has its own little grease fitting as well. And then we got our outer tie rod. Most of the time, if the vehicle has not severely been worn, you can get away with replacing just the outer tie rod, because these are the ones that really take a beating more so than the inner. But here's the inner, and we're going to be replacing that as well. This vehicle has about 180,000 miles, but it was treated pretty roughly, and this stuff's in pretty bad shape. So this is the parts that we are going to be replacing on each side today. So we've got 10 pieces all together. Got another set for the other side in there. Okay, now I want to show you some tools we're going to be needing to use, and these will not cost you anything. You can go to AutoZone, you can go to Advanced Auto Parts. They have a loaner tool program, and you can get these. It's not a tool that you use very often, and it's nice to be able to put a deposit and get this, because it's not something you use all the time. But this is the inner tie rod tool. The way this works, you have assortment of sizes, and they go into the end of this. I'll show you that. But pick what size fits onto the tie rod up in there, and that goes into the end of this. And then you put or 1/2-inch breaker bar or ratchet onto this end, and that will allow you to take that inner tie rod. It slips over. It will show that in more detail. This here is also an inner tie rod tool that works just as well without having to have this, but you have the only drawback to it is that you have to reach up in there and place it onto the inner tie rod and tighten these down. It's just a little bit more work than using this, but it works just as effectively. But essentially you get that into place and you tighten it down on the inner tie rod, and then you'll go in with an extended ratchet bracket bar, go into that, and then that allows you to turn or tighten whichever one you need to do there. So that's another tool you can get. I did have a box with a part number, but you can get this at pretty much any part store. So just ask them for an inner tie rod tool. If you want to just get this and use this, it will also work just fine for removing and torquing it back down. Okay, and the other tool we're going to need is a ball joint kit, and this is a 23-piece kit, and I got this from Advanced Auto. And now one thing about this kit, I know it's got the sticker on this side, but you want to make absolutely sure that you've got this flipped the right way, and it'll tell you which side is up. It says make sure that this side's up, and don't ask how I know that you want to do this, because it's definitely not going to be good. Okay, so here is the kit, and it has all the various sizes and pieces and everything that we could possibly use in here, and if we don't find it in here, then we just ain't gonna find it. But this is a really good kit that has everything we're going to be needing to get this ball joint out easily. So I'm going to go into more detail as we get going here, but at the very least you'll want to get yourself some kind of kit like this, unless you have some other means of pressing that out. You want to, you know, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and get you something like this, you know, and get you some kind of inner tie rod tool for removing that inner tie rod. But other than the special tools, that's all you really need there. Okay, and I wanted to point one more thing out before we get started with this. If you're going to be replacing these tie rods and all these parts, you're going to have to get an alignment when you're done. Now, alignment where I'm at is going to run me about $80 altogether, so that's something that you're going to have to do once you get all this stuff replaced. So it's just something to think about. Okay, in this kit, I'm going to leave a link in the description. The kit was about $115. Got a 10-year warranty. I've not had any problem with this kit before. Okay, I was using a 15/16 on these. A 24 would probably work as well. However, I run into the situation where a lot of these are broken. It's just a cap spinning, so I actually had to drive a 7/8. Also using a 6-sided on these. The 24 was a little bit big, the 15/16 was a little big, but then the other ones wasn't, they were too tight. So, but I'll probably just take these little caps off until I can get some replacements, because they're just spinning. But we got those broke loose before we lifted it. I'm back here on this part of the frame, and we're going to go ahead and lift it up real good. We'll get a jack stand or two under here. It's a 6-ton jack stand. I like it because it goes up higher, but we'll go ahead and get this into position here. Okay, and block behind your rear wheels as well. So we're going to leave the jack. We got the jack stand into place. And we got these loose. We're going to go ahead and just remove the wheel now. Okay, so we're just removing each one of these here. They're already loose, but I'm just taking them on off of this here. Okay, and here's a view with this wheel off, and you can see the condition of these. So there's just no question about these whatsoever. This is our bushings. They're not as bad, but we got the whole upper. Now for the lower, you can see what a massive control arm this is, and that's the reason, you know, these are kind of pricey. It's pretty heavy duty, well made though, and the bushings don't just look horrible, but they're not in the best of condition. But I think we can get away with leaving those for the moment and just getting our ball joint on this. You can see it's a pretty massive piece. This is your lower control arm. Now on the four-wheel drive it'd be a little different. Of course you'd have an axle nut up here to take loose as well, but you can see how your shock absorber comes down, bolts to the bottom of this, and then here's the ball joint, just completely destroyed. So this is one of the worst that I've seen. So this truck has been worked pretty well, and a lot of maintenance let go on it. And you can see the condition. This is a stabilizer link here, which is not just horrible, but starting to crack and get some separation there. So we're going to have to deal with all this. So I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this brake caliper off of here, and we're going to see about fastening it up, getting it out of the way here somewhere. We've got a couple of bolts in the back. See that big bolt right there? And then we've got another right up here, right in the back. We're going to take it loose there, figure out what size that is. We'll get our breaker bar over here and we'll see about fastening it up with some wire or something to get it out of the way first. Looks like we've got, okay, we'll just have to be careful with this line here when we're fastening it up. We're going to find a place to attach it here where it's going to be out of our way. Okay, I've got a breaker bar sitting on there, and that's a 21. This is the top bolt going into this brake caliper. So that's a 21 millimeter. And you'll notice I've got a 3/4 breaker bar and I've adapted it down to a 1/2 inch. I've just broke actually a couple of 1/2 inch, so I just went ahead and got a 3/4 for this. Now I guess my adapter could break, but I do have some 3/4 sizes as well. And got probably a couple feet of length, and in case it wants to get real difficult, I'm going to extend it on out and we'll get a hold of it. We'll just make sure to go lefty loosey. So we're going to go ahead and try to break this loose now. Okay, and you can see I did have to put my extended cheater pipe on there. These are really no joke. So we've got it broke loose. We'll hop down on the lower. Okay, so I've got it set up on the lower here, down on the bottom, as you can see. And we've just extended it out there. We're going to go ahead and break that loose, and we'll switch over to a ratchet to finish taking them out of there. Okay, now we can just go ahead and I'm working on the lower here with the ratchet. Take it on out and we'll get on that upper. And we'll want to get a hand on it just in case, make sure it's not going to fall. I've already got me some wire handy. And what I plan on doing is going through this part right here. And I'm just going to wire it up here. It's not going to hurt it. And we'll just wire it up out of the way here. Okay, to be able to slip this caliper off, you'll have to take a screwdriver in the back side through this little hole back here and push those pads over, because you'll have to get some tension off of it. See that in the back? Just go in there and push at that square is the top and the bottom, and it'll give it some slack. So change my mind. I think I'm going to use a strap. I'm just going to strap it over here. Just hook it through something here. Okay, these are the big bolts in the back of that bracket. I'm going to stick these back over here. Here's the lower. Okay, we can just go ahead and remove this rotor now. Just slip it right off. They're pretty heavy. Okay, we're going to go ahead and loosen stuff up. This one up here, this upper control arm. This is a 21. Go ahead and get a hold of that and break that loose. Okay, you're actually going to need a deep socket. It's a 21, but you're going to need a deep 21 to be able to get up there, a hold of that, because of this stud that's coming through. Now, it could be that this spins, and for that, they've got this attachment, and you would need to hold this and use a wrench on this right here. But we'll see what it's going to do. Okay, so we just remove that, and see it's like got a locking, Teflon locking nut on it there. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Okay, we're down here at the tie rod. The outer tie rod is. This is also a 21. So we're going to go ahead and just take that completely loose now. And it didn't spin on me because they're pressed in there. They're not spinning, at least in this case. Okay, and you could need to use a breaker bar. I'm using an extended handle ratchet for these. They're not really too bad. But if you don't have a long handle, you may want to use a breaker bar till you get it good and loose. Okay, I'm up here on the upper control arm. We're going to start taking that loose. That is a 21 millimeter as well. We're going to work on the nut side. And you can see as is, I'm not having to hold that over there. Now I won't be able to get my socket over here. I won't have clearance unless I pull this back. So I may just use a wrench or something over here on this side. But we're just taking these loose. I'm not going to take them completely out. I'm just going to take them loose for now. This thing will have some tension from being preloaded, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyways, I'm just going to work on getting this one, this 21 over here, this nut loose for now before we go any farther. Okay, I did get over here with my ratchet. I just used a shorter one for this side. So I've got those loose enough for now. We're going to go ahead and work on popping these out. You notice on the original that we actually got this end here for a wrench or something to get a hold of. So we can hit that. I'm not reusing them anyways, but even if you weren't, you could hit that as long as you didn't mushroom it too bad. or place something on it and hit it if you don't want to damage it at all. You can see these both. This is the outer tie rod. So you can either take a hammer, which it'll take a few good hits, or you can get yourself one of these. This just pops these off, these pitman arms, and you can put, you see the end where you can put a ratchet in there, and you just tighten it after you get it into place. So let's go ahead, we'll set this one up here if we can find enough room. Okay, these are actually so long, the bolt here, that I can't get a hold of it here unless I grind it off. You can see that I'm not going to have enough to get a hold of this, the distance between here and here. So we're going to just have to knock them off here with the hammer, because this is the only one I have. But the way that it's supposed to work, you need a little bit deeper one than I got. It just needs to be just a 1/4 inch deeper and it would work. But it slips on here, and you just screw this against the bottom of this bolt and it pops it off of there. Now you also want to be cautious when we go to popping this top one loose. This thing will flop down on you. But we're going to work on the lower. Said I just use a small hammer and we'll just hit it. I'm not reusing these, so I don't care what happens to mine on yours. You know, you can put something over it, put an old socket, something to protect that end if you're going to be reusing any of these parts after this. Okay, you can see that we got that mushroomed a little bit there, if it'll focus. What I found to work the best, because these were a lot more stubborn than I thought they would be, I took just a little screwdriver, pried this rubber seal up. It's loose now, it wasn't loose before, but just pried up on it, and simultaneously took spray lubricant and sprayed down in there, and I let it soak for about 10 minutes. I probably wouldn't have had to hit it this much if I'd done that first. Never underestimate the power of the penetrating wool. It really does wonders. It's really helped me out of some bad situations. So we got it knocked loose, so we can take that out of the way. We've got this one up here. We're going to do the same thing, just like I did below. We're going to pry this up. We're going to pry this up right here, and we're going to spray that lubricant right under there. We're going to let it soak. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to do the same thing down on this bottom one here as well. We get ready to pop that off. That's probably going to be the lower ball joint's probably going to be our more difficult, but we're going to let it soak. We'll get back in there, pry up that seal, and we'll spray under here and let it soak real good before we mess with it. Because once I got the spray lubricant under here, I tapped it like 3 times and it popped up. So it's just all about that resistance. Once you break the resistance, it'll come out of there. You don't have to do all that beating and banging. I seriously, now this would have worked with the spray lubricant, but I don't think that it would have worked by itself. It probably would have broke this thing. These were really on there. Okay, just to show you that, see how I've got that pried up, and then put your spray lubricant right under that and let it soak in for a bit. Let it soak about 5 or 10 minutes, and then you'll be able to knock it loose. And we're going to have a little bit more limited space in here, but we'll get it once we get it soaked a little bit. But while we're doing that, we're going to go ahead and get on the lower ball joint. So we're going to get back in here, And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pry that up, and I'm going to real liberally spray all that down. And so if I'm being real loud right now, I've got earplugs in. If you want to keep your hearing when doing this, get you some earplugs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this lower nut for the ball joint loose using a 24 millimeter, and I've got my breaker bar here, and it might have been better to have left that on until I broke this loose, but that's alright. It's going to hit against this over here. But we're going to go ahead and get this broken loose. I'll probably need to use my big cheater pipe too. Okay, I realized I was about to go the wrong way. It actually has to go in this direction. Always remember lefty loosey. Okay, now I'm just going ahead and getting this loose with my ratchet here. There's that 24 millimeter out of the way. And again, this one has the spot for the wrench underneath, so we can hit on that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get the top one loose. It's been soaking the longest, and I know I'm going to have the most trouble out of this one. We'll get on this one next and see how difficult it's going to be. Something else, you want to check your bearings when you got all this stuff loose. And you can, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's not sounding real good. So we're going to have to come back and revisit this. A lot of times you got noises going on from different stuff, and you can't quite isolate it because you got too many things to fix. So, but that's definitely a problem there. So I'm going to get to work on this one, knocking this loose. Okay, and if you're not having luck, like I'm not having, just peel that boot up there and spray some more lubricant and let it soak some more. You know, the idea is to get it down. It will penetrate eventually and start coming down through there. Okay, we finally got that to relent. I finally wound up laying under here with some safety glasses and hit on it a little bit, a few good hits. You can see the condition of this. It's probably one of the worst vehicles that I've seen. I'm sure there's a lot of them out there, but this is probably one of the worst ones as far as so much stuff being just completely gone on this. We're going to get to work. I'm probably going to be having to spray this lower one some more. We'll want to get a hand on it here, but we've got the nut off, so we're just going to start hitting it down here and see about this is completely loose. So we've got this loose, the upper, we got the tie rod loose. So now we just got to get the lower knocked loose, and we'll be able to lift this whole knuckle up and out of here. So we'll have to come back and visit these wheel bearings, but when you get everything loose, sometimes you can't really hear them. Sometimes you get vibration, sometimes you can't really hear them until you get the wheel off and actually listen and isolate it, and then you can start hearing that, and that's just problems waiting to happen. So anyways, we'll get to work on hitting this right here. Okay, so I had to break out the big sledge for this lower one. The little hammer just wasn't cutting it, and also had to utilize a pickle fork. And I was using this one right here. This thing was really stubborn, but on top of that, I took this because it gave me a little bit more, it snugged the pickle fork up. So this was essentially underneath, and then the pickle fork, I slid in there and just hit it like 3 times with the big sledge. You know, the little, I tried using my rubber mallet on the end, but it had to be solid, so you can see it didn't hurt it a bit. It was like 3 hits and it knocked it loose. This is a metal pickle fork. Now this is aluminum, this knuckle, so don't get too carried away and go to hitting it. You'll be messing it up and everything. But said I got some cardboard and like a cushion sitting down here because I knew it was going to fall off, and it just basically just fell over here on this. But yeah, like this was, the ball joint was in here. I slid this piece. This is out of the, you could use something else if you got like a washer or something, split washer. But this was out of the inner tie rod kit. And also kept me from damaging this aluminum down here. But it needed to be a little bit more snug because as I was coming in, this was going to hit over here. So I put that in there to snug it up, so when I come in, I hit it a couple good whacks with the big sledge here, and that's all it took. It was like 3 hits and it just come right off there, no problem. So it's just one of them things. I wasn't expecting this to be so difficult, but it was. So we've got the knuckle off of there, and I think the next thing we're going to go ahead and remove this stabilizer link here. Oh, and before I forget, I did have to go get the pickle fork kit. I didn't have this. Is I got this at AutoZone, and you get all these assortments of sizes, but it was just mainly this one that I was using. So anyways, you'll need that as well unless you already have one. Okay, I went ahead and set this back on here. I want to make sure that you understood what I was doing with this, because I didn't know which method was going to work until I knocked it off of there because it was being stubborn. But I had, okay, so your ball joint would have been farther up on there than this, but basically it's sitting on there still, and you've got it out like so. And I took this little piece here and just put onto there, onto this piece, and then I came in with the pickle fork in through here. So I've got it in there like that, and it's actually would have been a little tighter, but then it was out here like so. So with it setting like that, I got out here, hit it with the big sledge, with the 10-pound sledge, and 3 good hits, and it just separated it right off there and it fell down. Now I had, get you something to put down so when it falls, some cardboard or something for it to fall on a box. But that's all I did there. Just the pickle fork works really well on this one, but I did have a lot of penetrating fluid already in there before I knocked that off, and it had been soaking a little bit. So that's all I did. I just wanted to make sure you understood how I come from this side. Okay, on to this stabilizer link. We're going to be holding it right here. Got a 15 that we're going to have to hold that with. We're going to get up top here. I've got a deep 16. And of course we're going to have to hold this here while we turn that. And that's all I'm doing right now. We're going to take this top piece loose, and then we'll get on to the lower piece there. Okay, and if you get your wrench trapped over there against that shock, you actually don't have to worry about holding on to it. Okay, there's that locking nut loose, like a washer on here. And then we can work this out. It's got a couple of bushings there. Okay, we're down here on the bottom. We've got an 18 millimeter right there. We're just going to get a hold of with a little bit of an extension. We're going to get in here. Now we're also going to take our 15 up top while we're working this loose, and we're going to make sure that we're holding that same spot right here. We're going to hold it, and we're just going to take that 18 millimeter completely out. Okay, correction, you actually have to hold this here with a 17 millimeter. There's like just a flat that you get a hold of, and it'll slip on there, 17 millimeter, and hold it right there. Okay, and there's that 18, and we should be able to try to work this out of here. Okay, now the easiest way to handle this, you notice that this is loose. I'll show you all I've went and done is went to the other side and simply removed that 18 millimeter from the bottom and just lifted it right up and out of there. So now it's got slack, and otherwise you'd be having to push that up with a jack or something to get it out of the way. So there's that piece. Here's a look at this lower control arm. We can see it's a really big piece. You can see where it bolts in. And the two big bolts up there. So looks like we've got most of this stuff loose. I think we're going to probably start working on our tie rods in a second. We'll go ahead and take this out of the way. This has tabs that kind of hold it, so you shouldn't have to hold the bolt on that side. But there's that one, and then this one here. I'll just set that right there. You know how it goes, and we should be able to pull that out. Again, this is our upper. And another thing about this, we're going to want to replace these shocks. These shocks, I'm sure, are just horrible, and that will kind of facilitate wearing out your new parts and stuff. So you definitely want to replace them if you hadn't. See, the inner bushings are kind of holding up. A little bit of dry rot, but they are holding up. But when they sell the kit, they just sell this whole arm, so you just put the whole thing on, not to fool with them. So the next thing, I think we're going to get started on removing this. Luckily though, this is all up here in the front where you got plenty of room. On some vehicles it can be a real pain to get at. Just to show you right here, see that little bump right there? We're gonna break that. Just a band. We'll put a zip tie back on it. It'll be fine. But we'll get a hold of that and break that first, and then we got this little clamp here. You just squeeze with some pliers and remove it. Of course, we can't remove this until we get this part off though, but we'll go ahead and we'll get started on this here. I doubt that my new tie rods are going to be the same, but I took a measurement from there to the end of those threads, and I got like 5/8, just measuring it from here to here. So I'm going to use that as a reference. So it will need to be aligned, but I doubt that the links or any of this is going to be the same without measuring it from the end to the center line here plumb back. I'm probably not even going to get an accurate measurement, so we'll see what we got. Maybe once I get it all out here where I can actually take a look at it with this boot out of the way, I'll get an overall length of it and try to get it back about the same, just so it's close enough to get down to the alignment shop. Okay, so for the outer, you could use a crescent. I've got a 15/16 that fits this really good. I'm going to use that. You just turn it counterclockwise just like any other. And I've got just a crescent right here where the flat is. I hadn't looked at the replacement. I don't know if it has the same, but I've also just gotten a hold of them here and held it. It usually doesn't take a lot. So I'm just going to hold it still and work on getting this right here loose. I should probably point out it would have been easier to break this loose with it on the knuckle, but I didn't think about it at the time. A lot of times I already have that broken loose, but you can see I had to get my bar. It's just kind of wedged against the ground there, and I was just taking my rubber mallet and just hitting it here, but I can get it either way. It's just usually better to do it with it on the knuckle to at least get it loose. Okay, I got a little spray lubricant because this thing is still snug. Usually they have a spot on here you can get a wrench onto, but I'm not seeing that, so we're going to hold this with a plier or a vice grip while we take our crescent and turn this here counterclockwise. You see it's turning the whole entire thing. Like I said, I could, with my well, let me just show you. Okay, because I have this tool, I don't even need to take this whole entire tie rod off here if I don't want to. So I think what we're going to do, we're just going to leave it on for now, and I'm going to pull this boot up here. I'm going to show you how this works, because this is pretty easy to get to, and there's really no sense in me having to remove this whole thing anyway. But we'll use the other tool putting the new one back on. Okay, so the band there, so just take you a screwdriver and hammer, you hit it right there, and it comes right off. You can see it's completely loose now. Now we're going to get on this with a pair of pliers, pull this up here some. Okay, so just got a hold of that and pulled that little clip back. We should be able to. Sometimes these really stick right here, and they do not want to push forward. We're going to put a little bit of this on here. Most of the time they'll try to turn inside out on me, and I don't want to damage it either. I could have gotten the kit that had the new ones, but I didn't. Okay, so let me work on this a second. Okay, I've got it pulled up here as far as I can go with it for now. I'm getting ready to put this on. This is going to go on. You see it's got flats. That's for the inner tie rod tool I was showing you earlier. But we can get this on it. We'll simply remove the nuts on here, and we can slip this over it and get it into position. This has like little teeth right there, and it's made to get a hold of the ones that don't have the flats and that are smooth and round, but it'll work for this one just fine as well. I'm going to work this on here. I'll show you set up. Okay, once I got it positioned on there halfway right, I just go ahead and tighten these up. In this case, they're a 14. We're just going to snug them down. Don't get too carried away with it and break your tool. Okay, now I'll just get out here. I've got a long set of extensions, a 3/8 adapter on the end. And we're just going to go right up there into that. Kind of be prepared when it comes loose, because it will just kind of go all at once on you. Okay, I've got my tool off there, and I'm just spinning this out by hand. Once you get it loose, it comes right out, no problem. You can see we're just spinning it out of here. I'll get this out here where I can get a hold of it better, and it'll be easier. I guess I'll have to take it off to get my boot, but I'll be able to get to it a lot easier anyways. I just wanted to show you that tool anyways, and it comes in pretty handy. Okay, so I'm just holding it here and getting it with the crescent. Like I said, you could do the same thing in there. It really doesn't matter. Just ever how you want to do it. It's coming loose very easily now. We've about got it all the way off here. Just got a little bit ways to go. And with that piece off, go ahead, just remove this completely, and then we'll get that little clamp. And don't forget to put your clamp back where you go to putting this all together. Okay, and there's our inner tie rod. You can see once we got all that loose, we could just slip our boot right off. We'll be reusing that. This actually doesn't appear to be that bad, surprisingly, but I just prefer to get the whole kit and do it all. But you can feel this. Actually, this inner doesn't feel that bad. That's why I said a lot of times people just need to do the outers, because this is still pretty good. It's in pretty good shape. It could actually be reused, but we're going to put the new one on anyway. So we've got there's a look at that with that off there, and we'll be Loctiting that one back. I think we're going to go ahead now and get to work on this. Now I noticed that it looks like they crimped these edges a little bit here, so we're going to have to take a Dremel or a file or something to that, I'm assuming. We'll take a look at it here. Okay, I've just been taking a file to these. I guess they crimped these in factory instead of using the clips, and I'm just using this. Now there's 4 places, and just make absolutely sure you file those flat, file those crimp places down. Now we're going to take a wire wheel and go around this real good. Okay, this is how we're set up on this, and I'm just using my extended handled ratchet. You may need to use a breaker bar, to get this started. Just depends on how stuck it is. I've got a 7/8, or it could be a could use a millimeter, but this was fitting on there just fine. I'm going to show you how I got this set up here. Basically, we're just coming right down onto the top of that ball joint with this tool. We've got this big cup, and then we've got one of these on the bottom that has a hole big enough for the bottom of that ball joint to slip through as we're pressing it off. So you can notice how this cup is setting on to this back part right here. It's setting on this, and it's setting on this front edge. And this is the only way you can set this up due to the sizes that we have, and with this on this particular model being in the way, you have to set it onto this piece back here, and you'll have a little bit of a gap here, but it'll still press it out. And let me just show you why we did this. Okay, so I took this piece, this clamp back off, to show you what we've got here. We've got this big cup, and if you got a kit like this, it comes from right there. It's just the biggest one that goes right there. And you'll also need one of these. In this case, it's the one with the big hole, and that's able to set on it, and the bottom of this will center up, and it holds it still basically, because it centers up on the bottom of this tool here, if you can see that. So that centers up on there, and it holds it into place and gives something for the tool to push against this collar. So anyways, this is the pieces that you need. You can see how this is a little bit longer than the cup, but because of this hole, this is going to have enough room to push down in here. So this slips through there like that. Now also, the hole on the bottom of that tool, as we set this up, this will pass through the hole on the bottom of the tool. You can see where we've got it set. So let me take that piece off a second. So you can see this part of the bracket. Well, you can see how little room there is there. There's no way to get any other cup in there that would fit, and it would have to be an almost perfect fit. If there was one that would go around this part and be the perfect diameter, it could work, and then it would have to have a slot right here, but there's not one in the kit. Surprisingly, there's not one in there that will do that, because they wind up either being too big or too little, where this part of this ball joint, you see this part here has to go through the cup. You see I've got it cracked loose already. I was wanting to see how much pressure it was going to take, but I did it with my extended handle ratchet. So you set this on here, you make sure that's on the front edge where that ball joint's going to be able to go inside the cup, but it's on the front edge, and then it sets on this back here. And then you just set your tool with the cup on the bottom like this, and then get the clamp back on there. So I'm going to go ahead and set it back up, and we're going to start pushing this thing out. And also, I was talking about the filing part earlier, because they just crimped this. So make sure to file those down good, or it could ruin the inside of this bore. And take the time to wire brush it or clean it off a little bit. And like I said, I just filed it down. And we'll have the replacement, you see, will have the C-clip going back on it. Now I've noticed that it depends on what year. I've seen the other years, depending on if it's four-wheel drive, they don't even look like this. They look a little bit different. And they have the C-clip. But this particular model here is set up this way. Okay, so here we have it set back on here, and I'm kind of, the way it's set, and it works out to where it's coming down right there. It doesn't really matter much. This thing puts out a tremendous amount of force, and it will push it out of there. So you may hear it popping a little bit as you're working it out, but I'm going to get my ratchet back on it. We'll start cranking down on this thing. Okay, and you can see it's going. Now you could do this with an impact, but this works just as well. Just my 2-foot extended handle ratchet. You can see it's going. This clamp's trying to spin on me a little bit, but it is coming. It's not. It's like the very first initial point where you're trying to get it to move will be the hardest. And from here on, it's pretty easy. See, I should be getting pretty close to being through here. There we go. So we'll just go ahead and take this off here. Okay, and here's what that bore looks like. It's actually pretty rough in there, but this replacement has splines on it that bite in, and so we're gonna press this back up in here now. Now there's a spot on here, I guess, for the grease relief that has to go towards the back, so, or towards the inside rather, so we'll have to make sure that that part goes back in here as we're pressing that up. So we're going to go ahead and get set up, figure out what size that we need here, and we'll get set up. We're just going to pretty much do the same thing, except we're going to be pressing it back into there, and we'll be putting that snap ring back on. Okay, so this one here appears to be the closest to do what we need to do. It ain't perfect, but it's pretty close. We'll just have to make sure we got it centered up on here. Check the other sizes, and this is the closest one to fitting and doing what we need to do. And again, I'll just use this cup, help center it up, and then we'll get up here on top, and we'll need get another attachment on the top. Okay, for the top, I'm going to just use this little piece that come from over here, and it's just big enough that I don't have to worry about when I push this up. It should go into it just fine. It'll give me something to press down onto. So we're just going to get this up here in the position. I think I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication on here just in case, and make sure the grease relief's pointed in that way, and we'll get this set back up on there and just start pressing it back in. We'll see how difficult it's going to be. Okay, so here we are going back in, and it's really going pretty easy. Not having any difficulty. I'm just using my ratchet wrench, and it's going pretty easy. And we'll be able to tell when you get it seated, it'll stop. You won't be able to turn it much. So we're just going to keep on going. Like I said, I've got the cup here, this piece, and it's just hitting on that ledge, pushing it right on up in there, and it kind of centers itself up. and this little cup here for relief. Okay, and there we have it, and it's seated, and like I said, when you get it there, you'll know it because it ain't gonna move any. So now we're just going to remove our tool, and we'll go ahead and work on getting that C-clip into place here. Okay, so this little cup was just slightly wedged. When I pushed it up in there, I had to tap it with a screwdriver to get it off there. I don't know if that'll happen to you, but we're going to go ahead, get just some spreaders, and we'll get this thing on here next. Okay, and there that is, nothing to that. Now we just have the greaser. We'll put that on there, and because it's angled and not straight up and down, you need to make sure that it's pointed back at least, so you're able to get to it with the grease gun if need be. So we're going to go ahead and tighten this up. We can never get it started here. Okay, weirdly enough, this is a 9mm. I don't think I've ever used my 9mm. Snug it down. Doesn't have to be crazy tight. Right about there works for me. So the only thing else we got left is our little cotter pin, and we'll put that aside for now, and we'll probably put our nut back on here to keep these threads protected a little bit. So we got the worst of it done anyways. Now also, this new ball joint, you can barely move these things when they're new, and they should be that way. They should be really nice and snug. I mean, just take a look at this. I mean, this thing is really bad. I can't believe that some people drive around like this, but just completely gone. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put this inner tie rod back in now. We've got it set in here. Now, what I've done is measured. I put the old one back to where it was because I'd measured. I knew it was 5/8 from this end, and I'm just getting a measurement from here down to the center line of this, and if you kind of eyeball it, it's approximately 17 1/4. We're going to get it close. We'll get it close enough that we can limp around with it. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. I'm going to measure it out 17 1/4 and figure out about where it needs to be, and I'll put the place the nut there so it's in the right location. That way when I go to fastening my outer tie rod on, I'll have it in the right location. So I'm going to figure out where this needs to be by screwing this on here and getting the overall length to match this right here. That's all I'm doing. Okay, so there I have it at 17 1/4, and I could actually use this little greaser hole to get a better center. So we're right at about 17 1/4, just about like the other one. So I know where abouts it's got to be, so I'm gonna put a mark on here or some tape or something for now, just so I'm not having to do any guesswork and remeasuring it with it up in there. Okay, so I got it marked. I just took the tie rod and the nut back off there, and we're going to go ahead and get this set up. Now I've got the so none of them fit it exactly, but the 1.5 inch will get it done. See, it fits on there just like that, and then our tool will slide on to here. Basically it slides up and on, to it. And then we just get it fitted into those slots there. And once we get into the slots, we can lock this tab down here. Okay, and there's the tool with the tabs locked. And so all we have to do is tighten this down. I usually go like 80 foot-pounds on these. I'm going to put some medium Loctite on here. And then we're going to go ahead and work it up into place. I'll go ahead and tighten it all the way down as far as I can by hand before putting it on this tool though. But I just wanted to show you how that works real quick. Okay, we've got some Loctite on there. We're just fixing to get it started here. Okay, I've got my ring. I'm going to set it up here onto the flats so it doesn't fall off. Now we're going to take our tool here and we're going to carefully make sure that the tab's open. And we're just going to feed it onto here. And you may have to hold it so your tool back there doesn't slide off. And I'm going to go ahead and fasten that tab down, push it back a little bit farther, and I'll get the tab fastened down on it there. Okay, and try not to push it back so it doesn't slip back off of the flats there. Just kind of keep it pulled towards you a little bit. Got it set to 80 foot-pounds. We're just going to tighten it down until we get it to click a couple times. Okay, we got our old boot here. It's still working just fine. It's not cracked or anything, so it's doing its job. So we got the tool out of the way, and we got it torqued, so we're gonna go ahead and push this back and just push it right back onto there. And I put a little dab of my white lithium just to get it to slide on a little easier. Just give this a push back, and we need to go ahead and get our little clip that goes here, and that's this thing. We're going to slip that on there, and we'll just get our pliers and fasten that down. Now as far as this in the back goes here, I'm not real concerned with it. I'm going to put a zip tie around it, and that's going to be good enough. Okay, we got our zip tie on there. Just go ahead and trim some of this excess off here. So we've got that clamp and we got the zip tie. Okay, now I'm just going to take this and we're going to screw it back down till we hit the tape there. And then we'll stop and we'll go ahead and get our outer. So we're just going to butt it right up against the tape. Right there where we had it. We'll stop right there. And then we're going to go ahead and get our outer tie rod on now. Okay, and with that on there, we're just going to take our 15/16 and we're going to take and just hold it here somewhere with a crescent and just jam this together a little bit. Said you could tighten this once you get it in the knuckle, but just make sure you don't forget. And I'm just jamming them together a little bit. That size was actually different with the replacement, so I couldn't use the 15/16. I got a couple crescents though. Okay, so we'll just set that out of the way for now. Then we're going to go ahead. At this point, we're going to work on this upper control arm. We're going to get it into place now, and I can tell where the old bolts were, and I'm going to try to just put it back in the same position as it was. I don't know if it's going to make a lot of difference. Like I said, all this stuff's wore out. I very seriously doubt that it's going to matter much with the alignment. Okay, this had a 7mm grease zerk I just put on there before setting it up here. It's just going to be easier to do it with it down. So we're going to try to get this into place. and it should just go right in fairly easy, but we'll see. Okay, I'm gonna get the first bolt started on the left side. You can see I'm gonna, where it's clean right there where the bolt was at before, I'm gonna put it right back in the same exact area. Okay, now just sliding this bolt through this side. It was actually easier, I found, to pull this side out a little bit and get this one completely through before putting this one in. It seemed to work out a little bit better. I'm going to put some medium Loctite on these as well. Okay, so I'm just snugging these 21s down on each side. We're not going to get them tight just yet because we need to get the height to this right. Okay, I've run them down a little ways. As you can see, they're not tight. I can still pivot this up and down. So we're gonna leave that for a second, and we're gonna go ahead and focus on getting this knuckle back into place here. So we got our inner and outer tie rods, got our ball joint, and we got our upper control arm at this point. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do this stabilizer link. Now I will say that it's easier to do both of these at the same time, but I'm just going to show you this. Of course, the big end's going to go down in here. You want to face that grease cert to the side or the back, and then this is just going to pivot back down onto here. We're going to have to get this nut. We actually got something to get a hold of and hold here. We're going to get underneath, and we're going to re-snug this, and then we'll work on the one up at the top here. Okay, I'm getting the bottom with a deep 18 socket, and I'm holding this right here with an 18 as well while I'm snugging that up. Okay, our bottom is snugged up. We'll torque it in a minute. Got our grease cert pointed that way. We got this little piece that goes up here, and then this goes on the top, and we have to push this on down some more. Okay, if you take something, just push down right here, you can get this thing to push down where you need it. We're going to go ahead and snug that down. Okay, so for the lower, down here the 18, I'm going 75 foot-pounds. Okay, this is calling for 27 foot-pounds, but it just keeps on squishing down and I'm not getting it, so I've got it Loctited on there. We're going to see how this is going to work, because it's just going to keep on squishing the rubber bushings till they squish out. Okay, with that into place, we're going to go ahead and work on getting this knuckle back on. Okay, so we've just barely set it here and just barely started that, and we're going to go ahead and work this up into place here and work this back down on into here. I'm putting a little bit of white lithium grease just to help these go in a little easier. Okay, so we're just working this castle nut on here. Okay, I've got the lower just snugged up, nothing's torqued, and the upper, and I'm just getting ready to put our tie rod back in. See, it's pretty stiff. When it's new, you have to really pull on it to get it to do what you want. Now I do have the grease cert I'm going to have to put in on this one right here that I forgot about, but I've got them snugged up. We're going to go 45 foot-pounds on the tie rod here. Okay, the cotter pin didn't line up, so I had to keep going with it a little bit tighter. Okay, I just went 60 foot-pounds on this one. Okay, we're getting ready to torque the lower. We're going to go 103 on this 24. Okay, and we'll go ahead and just bend our cotter pin over here. Okay, right now what I'm doing is trying to get it set to where it was before, and I was getting somewhere along the lines of 20, 21, 21 and a half from the from up here down into the center line. That's to the center, what the center line, you know, imaginary line from there. Somewhere around there, 21, 21 and a half. But I'm good with that right there. So now that I've got that where I wanted, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these bushings. These are the ones that mainly want to take the stress off of. And if you were doing these down here, you'd tighten them at the same time as well, but they're going back to where they were because I didn't disturb them. So now I'm going to go ahead and torque these. Okay, those were calling for 97 foot-pounds. I went ahead and torqued them to 100 though. So we've got these torqued. We've got this torqued to 60. We're probably about at 60 on this one too, because the cotter pin didn't line up. 80 foot-pounds on the inner tie rod's been torqued. Went 103 on the lower one. We're going to go ahead and let this back down. And so we've got everything torqued here, and we need to get our rotor back into place here. But it's looking good so far. Okay, with the rotor set on, we're just going to go ahead and get our caliper, get those bolts out there, and we'll slip it back on to the rotor here. Okay, so I've just been tightening our caliper to the brackets, 130 foot-pounds, the top and the bottom. So this is all secured. Now we can go ahead and work on getting our wheel back on here. Okay, so we got our jack stands and everything out from under there. Got the wheel back on. I'm gonna have to get some more lugs. One was missing and the other ones are all garbage. I'm gonna have to replace these. The caps are just spinning and not doing much good. So we got this side, and I've spent the better part of the day working on this side. Nobody said it was going to be fun or easy, but I still got to do the other side over here, and I got my other set ready to go, so I'll probably get back on that tomorrow, get this finished up, and hopefully get this alignment done. So anyways, it's been a good experience with this. I hope you found the video helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and as always, I invite you to subscribe, and thank you for watching.